section of the video, what we're going to do is that we're going to learn how to create a perfect passive verb, a pluperfect passive verb, and a future perfect passive verb. There is a reason as to why I have waited until the very end to complete our indicative chart. Now remember, all of these forms that you see here and that you see here are indicatives, meaning that they are verbs that express a statement of fact. If I were to randomly choose one, agent, they will drive. That's a fact. If I were to randomly choose a different one, amabator, he was loved, he was being loved, that's a statement of fact. All of these are statements of fact, and such it's going to be down here as well. Now, these forms are unique in that they are going to be known as a periphrastic. Now, periphrastic is a big fancy word that simply, literally translates from Greek as roundabout way of saying something. Peri, round, phrastic, a saying, a phrase. But technically, what a periphrastic is two words, one verbal expression. We have that in English. For example, in elementary school, if you write down the statement, they are running, and let's say the teacher says, circle the subject, underline the verb. It's easy to circle the subject, but if an elementary student, or even y'all, were to ask to be underlining a verb, you would most likely underline running. That is wrong. The verb is the whole expression, are running. And so this is an example of a periphrastic. Now, a periphrastic, inevitably, is going to consist of the two parts, which are the following. One of those parts is going to be a participle, and the other is going to be a form of the verb to be. So, let's go and look at our participles that I have written on the right-hand side of the board. But, if we are trying to create a perfect passive verb, and a pluperfect passive verb, and a future perfect passive verb, what participle do you think are going to be used for all three of them? The perfect passive. So let's go look over here. So, as we should be aware, these are our participles. And remember, in one word, participles are adjectives. There should be 6 of them because participles can be present, they can be perfect, they can be future, they can be active, they can be passive, but they're only 4 because the perfect active does not exist and the present passive does not exist. Now, in periphrasticks in Latin, that one is hardly ever used. In the example that I had given over there in English, it is used. They are running. Remember? Loving, driving. Put a helping verb with it. Are loving, are driving. But you will never see that expression in Latin. And truly, if I were to get my Allen and Greenough grammar, and most Latin teachers, if we were to go to another school and talk to them, most Latin teachers would only and exclusively refer to the periphrasticks as the 2 words, one verbal expression involving the futures, in which we could add a form of the verb to be to one of these and make a future active periphrastic. And we add a future passive plus a verb to be to make a future passive periphrastic. But I call all verbs that have 2 parts, one verbal expression, one of them being a participle, the other one being a form of the verb to be, I call them all periphrasticks. And why do I do that? Because technically they are. That's what a periphrastic is. And Allen and Greenough backs me up on it. By the way, Allen and Greenough is probably the gold standard Latin grammar books. It's called New Latin Grammar by Allen and Greenough. Why is it New Latin Grammar? Because it was published in 1901, and that's recent. Now, these are then the forms that we are going to use in order to create a perfect passive verb, a pluperfect passive verb, and a future perfect passive verb. So it is amatus, amata, amatum for amo, and actus aum for ago, agere, egi, actus. Now, because we are going to now take these and make them a part of a verbal expression, a periphrastic, 2 words, one verbal expression, of the 30 forms that are available here, Ooze, o, e, or me. So it's e's in the neuter. E, o, a, or me, say e's, and e, a, m, long a, or m, is, do. Now the first declension is through. 30 forms. But when we make it a part of a verb, we can only use the nominative forms, the 6 nominative forms. And why? Subject, verb, agreement. You've got to have nominative to agree with the verb as the subject. So, this is how we do it. Back over here. So here for our verb, amo, amare, amawi, amatus, we are going to first start out with the perfect passive participle. Why is that the participle we're going to use? Because we're making a perfect passive verb. So, I want third singular. So if I wanted to, I could use this, amatus, but only if I wanted my subject to be he, masculine. If I wanted my subject to be feminine, amata, she. If I wanted my subject to be it, amatum, neuter. Now please note the difference. Here we don't know whether it is he, she, or it is loved. Here we don't know whether it is he, she, or it was loved. Here we don't know whether it is he, she, or it will be loved. But when it is a periphrastic, because we can change the ending on the participle, we will know. So, let's just make it he. Amatus. Now, right now, you can see amatus. I can see amatus. Having been loved. A perfect passive participle. But once we add a form of the verb to be, you will no longer see amatus, nor will you see the verb to be with it. Instead, you will see the whole thing as a unit. Now, to make a perfect passive verb, you take the perfect passive participle and you pair with it a present of the verb to be. Now, over here is the verb to be. Soon as a fui futuris. And so if I wanted first person singular, I'd use soon. Second person, I'd use est. But we want third person singular, and thus we're going to add an est. So I am about to magically make amatus disappear. And how am I going to make it disappear? Without using an eraser? And you no longer see amatus. I don't see amatus. You don't see amatus. Instead, what you see is amatus est. Likewise, I don't see est. I can't see it. It's not there. Why? Because it is a unit. Amatus est. Now, this is very, very, very important. Even though you see, or think you see, est, should not come out of your mouth. This is a perfect passive verb. And so likewise, whereas we said, he loved, he did love, he has loved, this is going to be, he was loved, he has been loved. Please don't say he did be loved. That'd just be wrong English. But it's a unit. Likewise, for agere, I want the second singular. Again, I could say actus, acta, actum. So I'm going to put a feminine on there. Now the subject is going to be you, but I know about that you. It's a girl you. And then again, all I got to do is to this perfect passive participle. I can see acta, you can see acta, but as soon as I add the form of the verb to be, to create a perfect passive verb, you are not going to see acta anymore. Acta s. It is a unit. I don't see acta, I do not see s, but I do see acta s. Likewise, I'm now going to make the subject neuter. No, I cannot do it. I just now saw that it was third plural. I can't use us, I can't use I can't use because that would be a he or she or an it. One, I have to use acti, or acti, or acta. So let's go with acti, because it has to be plural. Now here I see it having been driven. But as soon as I add a form of the verb to be, I need the third plural, sunt, I no longer see acti, and I certainly don't see sunt. I only see acti sunt. And thus, not they are would imply that you see a sunt. No. But they were driven yesterday, and it's over. They have been driven yesterday, and it's over. They did be driven yesterday, and it's over. I would count that right, even though it's bad English. Lastly, first singular. Now we can return to actus, acta, actum. Now the subject is going to be I, but what do I know about that I? It's neuter in its gender. And I'm going to use then sum. That is there. And you only see actum sum. You do not see sum, you do not see actum. It's a periphrastic. 2 words, 1 verbal expression. Now this is the genius and the best part. For the pluperfect and the future perfect, again you're going to use the perfect passive participle. So I'm going to go ahead and write them in. Amatus, amatus. Acta, acta. Acti, acti. Actum, actum. I see amatus, I see amatus, I do not see amatus. Because there's an S with it. I see acta, I do not see acta. I see acti, I see acti, I do not see acti. I see actum, I do not see actum. So the question then becomes, if it is going to be the same perfect passive participle for a perfect passive verb, a pluperfect passive verb, and a future perfect passive verb, how can you tell? Well, it's the form of the verb to be that goes with it. What do you pair with a perfect passive participle? To make a perfect passive verb, the present, 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 present of the verb to be. So what are you going to pair with a perfect passive participle, 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 in order to make a pluperfect passive verb? The imperfect of the verb to be. And you see it over here. Eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratus, erant. And so, I want third singular. I'm going to make amatus disappear. Boom, it's gone. Now it's a unit. I'm going to make it disappear. Boom. 2 words, 1 verbal expression, a unit. Let me put that E a little bit farther away from the acta so I know it's 2 words. Same thing here. Boom. It's a unit. And eram. No longer do you see actum, it becomes a unit. 2 words, 1 verbal expression. It is a periphrastic. Likewise for the future perfect. You will now use the future of the verb to be to pair with the perfect passive participle to create a perfect, future perfect passive verb. And we see them over here. Ero, eris, erit, erimis, eritis, erunt. When it is the future of to be, it is erunt. When it is a ending in the active, it is erint. So, est, erat, future perfect, pairing with it, erit, and it functions as a unit. Over here, eris, and it functions as a unit. Here, erunt, and it functions as a unit. And here, ero, and it functions as a unit. Now quickly to translate them. He loved, he was loved. He did love, he did be loved. I'll count that right, but that's just bad English. He has loved, he has been loved. Let's go to pluperfect. Let's go with egerant. They had driven. Pluperfect, had. They had been driven. And then future perfect, I will have driven. Over here, I will have been driven. But the key to know is that you don't see the perfect passive participle, you don't see the form of the verb to be. You see both of them as a unit. So every time you see a perfect passive participle, look to see if there's a verb to be with it. And then look to see what kind of verb to be is with it. Present, with a perfect passive participle, perfect passive. The subject was verbed, the subject has been verbed. Imperfect, hanging out with the perfect passive participle, pluperfect, passive. The subject had been verbed. And future of the verb to be, hanging out with the perfect passive participle, future perfect, passive. Subject will have been verbed. And so now all you need to do is practice. Thank you.